I wasn't spying. I wasn't hiding behind a door. I wasn't listening on purpose. I was just a tired old woman, arms aching, fingers numb, carrying grocery bags into the house I paid for with my whole life. Milk in one hand, eggs in the other. And then I heard my daughter's voice. Not loud, not angry, just casual, like she was talking about the weather. She said, "She ruined our lives. We're stuck because of her. I wish she'd just die already." I stopped walking. The words didn't hit me all at once. They crept in, slow, cold. I waited for someone to argue, to correct her, to say, "Hey, that's your mom." But instead, the man she married nodded and said, calm as ever, "It's not like she has much time left anyway." Then he laughed. That's when the grocery bag slipped out of my hand. Eggs shattered. Milk spilled across the floor. But I didn't move, because in that moment, I didn't feel like a mother. I didn't feel like a grandmother. I felt like a problem they were waiting to disappear. They didn't know I was standing there. They didn't know I heard everything. They were talking about my death, like it was a moving date, like a solution. And what hurt the most? Not the words, not even the wishing. It was how easy it was for them to say it.
No guilt. No hesitation. No shame.
Just relief. That was the moment something inside me cracked. Because I realized something terrifying. I wasn't family anymore. I was furniture. I was a burden. I was a house key they wanted without the owner attached. I had raised her, fed her, worked double shifts so she could have more than I ever did. And now, she was counting down my life like an inconvenience. I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. I wanted to ask why. But instead, I picked up a broken egg, yolk dripping through my fingers, walked past them without a word, and went to my room. That night, they turned on the TV and laughed. The groceries stayed on the floor. No one knocked. No one checked on me. No one cared. And that's when I understood the truth no one prepares you for. Sometimes the people you give everything to are just waiting for you to give one last thing. Your absence. That was the night I stopped being their mother and became someone they never
saw
coming. Because some betrayals don't deserve forgiveness. They deserve consequences. They didn't know I was standing there. They didn't know I'd just come home from the store, arms sore, feet aching, mind already tired from a day that never really ends. They didn't know I heard every single word, and what they said next wasn't loud, wasn't dramatic. That's what made it worse. Because calm words don't slip. They're chosen. And those words didn't just hurt me. They ended the woman I had been for decades. The grocery bag slid out of my hand before I realized it. Plastic stretched. Handles snapped. Eggs hit the floor and burst like tiny explosions. Milk spilled, crawling across the tile. Celery rolled away, stopping under the hallway table like it was trying to hide. But I didn't bend down. I didn't flinch. I stood there, frozen, heart pounding so hard it felt loud enough for them to hear. My daughter's voice floated through the living room again. Flat.
Cold.
She said, "If she forgets her meds, that house is ours."
Not if something happens.
Not God forbid.
If.
Like it was a plan already halfway written. Then her husband laughed. Not nervous laughter. Not uncomfortable laughter. Real laughter. The kind people use when they feel confident. When they think they're safe. I remember thinking, this is how strangers talk about someone. Not family. I wanted to believe I misunderstood. That maybe there was context I missed. But then she said it again. We deserve it after everything. Deserve. Like my life was payment overdue. I didn't cry. That surprised me. I didn't scream, didn't rush in demanding answers. Instead, my body moved on instinct. I bent down and picked up a broken egg. The shell sliced into my finger, but I barely felt it. The yolk slid warm and sticky through my hand, dripping onto the floor. I remember staring at it, thinking how strange it was, how something so fragile could still leave such a mess. I walked past them.
Slowly. They noticed me then.
My daughter turned, eyes wide. Mom. She took a step forward like I was a wild animal. Careful. Calculated. Her husband scratched the back of his neck and said, "You shouldn't sneak around like that." That was it. Not "Are you okay?" Not "You heard wrong."
Just blame.
I didn't answer. I didn't look at them. I walked straight to my bedroom and closed the door.
Locked it.
Sat down on the edge of the bed. And that's when it hit me. That house they were already dividing up? I bought it. Every wall. Every bill. Every sacrifice. My nursing wages. My husband's pension. I let them move in when they said it was temporary.
Just a few months, Mom.
Until we get back on our feet. That was 4 years ago. 4 years of cooking meals no one thanked me for. 4 years of cleaning messes that weren't mine. 4 years of paying bills quietly so no one would feel embarrassed. I sat there waiting. For footsteps. For an apology. For someone to knock. Nothing. Instead, I heard the TV click on. A sitcom laugh track filled the house. They were already done with me. The groceries stayed in the hallway. No one cleaned them up. No one cared. Midnight came and went. I didn't sleep. I sat there, stiff and silent, realizing something I never wanted to know. They didn't just stop loving me. They stopped seeing me. I wasn't their mother. I wasn't family. I was background noise. Free housing. A ticking clock. Furniture. And furniture isn't thanked. Furniture is waited out. That was the night my life split in two. The woman who kept giving, and the woman who finally understood what giving had cost her. And once people stop seeing you as human, they don't argue with you anymore. They don't explain themselves. They don't even pretend. They start planning life without you in it. They talk over you. They talk around you. And eventually, they talk about you, like you're already gone. That's when love turns into math. How much the house is worth. How long the money will last. How many years they think you have left. And that's when I realized I wasn't living in my home anymore. I was waiting to be replaced. That house. I paid for it. Not with luck. Not with inheritance. With overtime. With aching feet. With nights I came home too tired to eat. Every wall holds a memory. Every bill has my name on it. When my daughter and her husband moved in, they said it would be temporary. Just a few months, Mom. We're struggling right now. We'll help around the house. I believed them, because mothers always do. Months turned into a year. A year turned into 4. Somewhere along the way, I stopped being the owner and became the inconvenience. I cooked every meal. Breakfast left untouched on the table. Dinner reheated without a thank you. Plates stacked in the sink like it was my job to notice. I cleaned. Shoes kicked off wherever they landed. Laundry piled up like gravity was broken. Trash bags left by the door, waiting for me. I paid the bills. Electricity, water, internet. Whenever money got tight, they'd sigh loudly and say, "Mom, can you help just this once?" It was never just once. I paid their debts, their credit cards, their late fees. I told myself it was temporary, that families help each other. But slowly, they stopped asking. They started expecting. I became invisible in my own house. Conversations stopped when I entered a room. Plans were made without mentioning me. My chair at the table felt borrowed. Sometimes my daughter would introduce me to her friends and say, "This is my mom. She lives with us. Lives with us." Like I was the guest. I learned to walk softly, to close doors quietly, to exist without taking up space. Weeks would pass without anyone asking how I was doing. No, did you eat? No, are you okay? No, thank you. They remembered my name when rent was due, when the car needed fixing, when the phone bill came late. Other than that, silence. For years of silence. Not loud silence. The kind that hums in the background. The kind that makes you feel heavy even when you're sitting still. To them, I wasn't a mother anymore. Mothers are listened to. Mothers are valued. I was a wallet with a pulse. Useful. Replaceable. Temporary. And the scariest part? They didn't even think they were doing anything wrong. Because once people stop seeing you as human, they stop feeling guilty. And that's when I knew, if I stayed, I wouldn't just lose my house. I would lose myself. But what they didn't know was this. Quiet people don't stay quiet forever. They don't explode. They don't threaten. They don't make scenes. They observe. They remember every word, every look, every silence. They're not weak. They're loading the truth. And once that truth finishes loading, everything changes. I found the tablet by accident. It was left on the kitchen counter, screen still glowing, like it was waiting for me. I wasn't snooping. I wasn't suspicious. I was just wiping crumbs off the counter, because no one else ever did. The screen lit up when I touched it. A message preview appeared. One sentence. And my heart stopped. If she dies, we can sell the house. Not when the time comes. Not, God forbid. If. My hands started shaking. I told myself not to read more. That maybe it was a joke. A misunderstanding. But once you see words like that, you don't unsee them. I opened the message thread. Another reply came up underneath. Her life insurance should cover the condo. That was it. Something inside me went completely quiet.
No crying. No screaming. No panic.
Just stillness. Like my mind finally caught up to what my heart had known for years. They weren't worried about me forgetting my meds. They were counting on it. They weren't afraid of losing me. They were planning what came after. I looked around the kitchen. The same kitchen where I cooked their meals, paid the bills, cleaned the messes. And suddenly, it didn't feel like a home. It felt like a waiting room, waiting for me to be gone. I put the tablet back exactly where it was. Didn't leave fingerprints. Didn't change anything. I washed my hands slowly. The water felt colder than usual. That's when the sadness disappeared. Not because it didn't hurt, but because the truth doesn't hurt the same way lies do. This wasn't neglect anymore. It was strategy. They weren't waiting for me to live. They were waiting for me to die. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel confused. I felt clear. Crystal clear. Because when people show you who they are, the second time, you don't cry. You plan. So I gave them exactly what they never expected. Not an argument. Not tears. Not another sacrifice. My absence. Because when people stop seeing you as human, your presence becomes a convenience. And the most powerful thing you can do is quietly remove it. I didn't leave a note. Not because I didn't have anything to say, but because they wouldn't have listened. I didn't say goodbye. Goodbyes are for people who notice when you're there. I packed one suitcase. Not everything I owned. Just what mattered. A few clothes. My medications. Documents I'd paid for and earned. And one photo. My late husband. The only person who ever looked at me like I wasn't replaceable. I waited until the house was quiet.
No te ve. No footsteps. No voices.
At 4:30 in the morning, I opened the front door of the house I built and stepped outside. The air felt colder than it should have. Not scary.
Clean.
The door closed behind me without a sound. No one woke up. No one asked where I was going. No one asked if I was okay. That told me everything. I walked to the bus stop slowly. Not because I was unsure, but because I didn't need to rush anymore. When the bus arrived, the driver looked at me and asked, "You sure about this, ma'am?"
I don't know why he asked.
Maybe he saw it in my face. I smiled. Not a sad smile. Not a nervous one. A calm smile. And I said, "More sure than I've ever been." I took a seat by the window. As the bus pulled away, I watched the house shrink in the distance.
No anger. No regret.
Just relief. The driver handed me a cup of coffee. I took a sip. It wasn't fancy. It wasn't strong. But it tasted like freedom. Like silence without fear. Like choosing myself. For the first time in decades. And as the road stretched ahead of me, I knew something they didn't. You can't control someone who's no longer afraid of losing you. I ended up at a small senior co-op. Nothing fancy. No grand entrance.
No polished floors.
But it was quiet. The kind of quiet that doesn't press on your chest. The kind that lets you breathe. The first night, I slept with the light on. Not because I was afraid, but because I wasn't used to peace. In the morning, someone knocked on my door. I flinched. Then a voice said, "Good morning. Breakfast is downstairs if you'd like." Not why are you here? Not who are you? Just welcome. For the first time in years, someone looked me in the eye and waited for my answer. I started small. I helped organize the medicine cabinet, labeled bottles, set reminders. Old habits from my nursing days came back without effort. Someone noticed. "Would you mind showing us basic first aid?" they asked. Mind? I hadn't been asked anything in years. So I taught. How to wrap a wrist. How to spot a stroke. How to stay calm when things go wrong. People listened. They thanked me. I started gardening in the courtyard. My hands in the soil. Sun on my face. I planted tomatoes. Herbs. Flowers that didn't need much attention, like me. People would stop and talk. Not to rush past. Not to interrupt. Just to talk. I laughed again. At first, it surprised me. The sound felt unfamiliar in my own ears. But it came back slowly. Not because anyone needed something from me. Not because I was useful. But because I was respected. Because I was seen. In that small, quiet place, I remembered who I was before survival took over. Not a burden. Not a problem. Just a person. And for the first time in a long time, that was enough. And while I was rebuilding my life, learning how to breathe again, learning how to laugh without flinching, they were losing everything. Not because I attacked them, not because I screamed or fought back, but because I stopped holding the ground they were standing on. I didn't yell. I didn't threaten. I didn't send angry messages or demand explanations. I did paperwork because paperwork doesn't argue. It doesn't beg, and it doesn't feel sorry. The first appointment was with a lawyer. He asked me one simple question. Whose name is on the deed? I told him. Mine. Only mine. He nodded once and said, "Then this is going to be very simple." Simple. That word felt strange after years of chaos. We went through everything slowly. The deed. The mortgage history. The insurance policies. The trust one should have set up years ago. No raised voices. No drama. Just facts. And facts don't care about guilt. I signed papers with a steady hand. Not because it didn't hurt, but because the pain had already passed. Next came the sale. The house didn't take long to sell. Turns out, homes built on sacrifice are very attractive on the market. Offers came in fast, higher than I expected. I didn't celebrate. I didn't smile. I just felt finished. When the sale was final, I sent them one envelope. No letter.
No explanation.
Inside were only 3 things. The deed, marked transferred. A check, clearly stamped void. And silence. I let reality explain the rest. I imagined the moment they opened it. The confusion. The panic. The realization that the house they were already dividing up was never theirs. That the future they planned had been built on permission they no longer had. I didn't block their numbers. I didn't need to. The calls came anyway. Voicemail after voicemail. My God, what did you do? Mom, this has to be a mistake. We can fix this. Funny. They never said we're sorry. Just we're scared. I listened to one message. Just one. Then I deleted the rest. Because revenge doesn't have to be loud. Sometimes it's just the moment. Someone realizes. They misjudged the quiet one. And by the time they understand, it's already over. Then the phone exploded. Not one call. Not 2. Dozens. Missed calls stacking on top of each other. Like panic pressing for air. My daughter's name filled the screen. Over and over. Then the voicemail started. Mom, please call me back. There's been a mistake. We don't have anywhere to go. The next one came faster. We're homeless. Do you understand what you've done? I listened in silence. No shaking hands. No racing heart.
Just calm.
Because I'd heard their voices before. When bills were due. When credit cards maxed out. When the car broke down. Back then, the calls sounded different. Back then, they said my name. Like it was a solution. Not once in 4 years did the phone ring. Just to ask how I was doing. Not once. The next message was louder. How could you do this to your own daughter? That one almost made me laugh. Because they never asked that question. When they planned my life without me in it. They never asked it. When they joked about my meds. When they calculated my insurance. When they counted my house before I was gone. The calls kept coming. Anger replaced panic. You're cruel. You can't just disappear. You owe us.
Oh.
After everything. I set the phone face down on the table. Didn't block them. Didn't respond. Because silence was the lesson. I'd been silent for 4 years. They never noticed. Now they felt it. And for the first time, they understood what it's like to call into emptiness and realize no one is coming to save you. She found me eventually. I knew she would. Some people don't come looking for you because they miss you. They come because they miss what you provided. She stood there crying, not the soft kind of crying, the broken kind, the kind that comes when the plan falls apart and there's nowhere left to hide. Her voice shook when she asked, "You're really not coming back?" I studied her face, the same face I used to memorize when she was a child, the same eyes I stayed up nights worrying about. But now, I saw someone different, someone who had confused love with access. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't accuse her. I just spoke the truth. I said, "I didn't leave you. I came back to myself." The words surprised even me, because they were true. I had spent years shrinking, so other people could feel comfortable. Years apologizing for taking up space. Years believing love meant endurance. And in that moment, I understood something simple and painful. You can love someone and still choose yourself. I stepped back. She reached out like she wanted to grab my sleeve. I turned away, not out of anger, but out of self-respect. I walked away slowly, not because it didn't hurt, but because staying would have hurt more. And as I kept walking, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Not revenge, not victory.
Peace.
Here's the truth no one tells kind people. Being useful is not the same as being loved. People will take your time, your money, your energy, and still convince themselves they've earned it. Kind people don't notice it happening at first. They call it loyalty. They call it patience. They call it love. But sacrifice without respect isn't noble. It's slow self-destruction. You don't lose yourself all at once. You disappear in small ways. You stop speaking up. You stop asking for help. You start apologizing for existing. And one day, you realize the people you gave everything to only miss you. When you're no longer useful, that's when the hardest lesson arrives. Sometimes love doesn't need another chance. Sometimes it needs a boundary. And sometimes the strongest thing you can do is leave quietly, not to punish them, not to make a point, but to save yourself. Because silence can teach what words never could. Let them feel the absence they never noticed when you were there. Let them sit in the quiet you lived in for years, and walk away knowing this. Choosing yourself after being forgotten is not selfish. It's survival.